let's dive into it. It is the news of the day. Miguel Angel Ramirez, after just 16 games, has been relieved of his duties from Charlotte FC, an expansion side. Now, to give you some context, Charlotte FC is 2 points out of a playoff spot right now, has one of the best identities I've seen from an expansion team at this point in their existence of all time. And from what I've been reading, the majority of the players enjoyed the way that he coached. The owner, David Tepper, has stepped in and said, you can go and your entire staff can go. See ya. Don't want you here. He cleaned house not even halfway through the season. Your initial reaction to when this happened? Give me your thoughts.
Is it fair to say dumb? What's going on? I don't understand this in the slightest. Obviously, what we've learned with the Losada firing is likely we will find out more details into actually what is going on a little bit later on. But right now, it's like, what in the world? You couldn't tell me that the Charlotte coach was going to get fired before the Chicago coach right now. Like, Charlotte have looked anything but bad this season, with the exception of maybe like the first game of the season, which was their first game in history. So obviously, you get a pass on that. Charlotte, obviously 8 losses on the season. Not going to say that they're like the greatest expansion team of all time, but to be comfortably in the playoff chase at this point in the season, why in the world did you shake it up? Like, it does not make any sense. I don't understand why they did it. And they're really risking shaking things up, especially if, like you said, if a lot of the players were happy with the way things were going, and I can completely understand why they would feel that way. Now you're going to risk potentially bringing in someone new who could do the opposite and lose the locker room, and then the results start to tank. So I can't wrap my head around this at all.
I'm completely with you. So just some more stats to make this even crazier of a decision. Since 2010, there have been 13 expansion teams in MLS. Of those 13, the 16 points that they have gained through 14 matches is the 6th most at this stage of the inaugural campaign. They're bang average for an expansion team, which is very, very good, right? For a team that came in, basically put together a roster of MLS veterans, a few internationals, and that's a bad Brant Bronico as the center single pivot. This man made them a relatively good MLS side. From what I'm reading, or rather what I have read, the driving force was a certain designated player has said he refused to play for Charlotte anymore after the June international break if it says Cornetta, but if Miguel Angel Ramirez was still in charge. That leaves you Jordi Alcivar, who's been playing every single game and playing very well. Karol Swiderski, who's, I think he has to be the one, because the other one is Kamil Jozwiak. He's been here for 3 weeks. There's no shot. Unless. But the front office was extremely quiet about it. I'm not gonna comment on things where some of the quotes that they had. There's not much point to speculate. We're gonna leave everybody in the dark. I don't want to go into details. It's not going to help anybody. Difficult to explain. Blah 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 blah. End of the day, we had no choice. That's garbage. You don't take a team who is back to your awful front office decisions from day one, by the way. Let me see if I can find that tweet really quick. But I was sorry. While we have this dead air here, what I was looking for is there was a tweet that basically laid out what their first 6 months of the I guess the front office moves for Charlotte so far this sorry, I'm trying to speak and read at the same time. So far what their front office has looked like over the last 6 months. Basically their sporting director or the president of the club had left. I need to start favoriting these tweets so I can just look back as soon as I can.
You gotta bookmark them.
Yeah. Which means there's only one left. This one. It's always the last one that I look for too. Nope. Okay, never mind. Can't find it. But basically, it was like the whole front office. We'll just cut that part out. Yeah. The whole front office has been basically revamped. I'm pretty sure it was the president, the sporting director, and now the coach has been sacked. Their entire coaching staff has been sacked in 6 months of a team that was put together with bubble gum and duct tape, thrown onto the field and said, "Go make a result." The fans have stuck behind him. They like the coach, and he was doing well. He was doing well with a team that he didn't have a lot to work with. You finally give him some designated players to work for or work with. Evidently, that you didn't bring him in on those decisions because one of them hates him. This is an awful, awful look. If you are, so let me say, if you are looking at this as a neutral, just somebody who doesn't even follow the league, but just sees this, what do you think?
What's the right word? It's like on the tip of my tongue. It's dysfunctional organization. It's the first thing that comes to my head right now. I'm also, it's ringing a lot of bells of like Watford in the Prem. It's like these situations where the coach just doesn't even get a chance and is already walking out the door. Going in one way, doesn't even stop, can't put down his bag. He's already walking right back out the door again. There's no way you're going to be able to be successful if you can't hold any consistency, whether that's the coach or the front office. Look at the model team for this league in the Seattle Sounders. They've had 2 coaches in their history. I mean, you want to talk about consistency, that's a team that is consistent and is consistently good. So I just don't understand why. I mean, to answer your question, from a neutral fan perspective, I would look at it and I would say, I would probably just think like, oh, is this like the level of dysfunction that all MLS teams have? Like it is, I don't know. It's, you know what? I'm not putting that well. I don't know if I can provide a perspective from a neutral fan like standpoint.
So early on, we were talking about Charlotte as just kind of as a team and what they were going to do. We were going to talk about what happens because remember, he came in and he was talking garbage about this entire roster. You know, I can't work magic. I'm not Harry Potter. We're screwed. We're in trouble. Nobody's giving me stuff, right? All this stuff. So we went and we looked at expansion coaches who lasted less than a year. Do you remember any of them?
Yeah, FCC was one of them.
FCC was one of them.
And I did some research on that one. They started that season 2-7-2. 7 losses for those that, just to clarify for those, which you can't even say is comparable to the start that Charlotte has had. And then how many others did you say there were?
There were 4, if I remember correctly.
I feel like we've had this conversation before.
We did. That's why I'm bringing it back.
I don't remember. I don't think any of the others other than FCC.
Okay, so you've got Teitur Thordarson, who lasted less than a season with the Vancouver Whitecaps in their first season. He produced 1 win in 3 months. Vancouver then went on and had, when did they next make the playoffs? Their first playoff appearance.
It's like mid 2000s. Mid 2010s.
I want to say 2015.
That's what I was thinking too.
There it is. That's what I'm looking for. We're going to have a lot of editing to do on this, but.
It actually looks like 2017.
Yeah.
They weren't even around in 2015.
So in 2010, they were D2 Pro. No, they made the, wait, was that? Yeah, the playoffs. Okay. So the playoffs, they made it to they never made it past the first round until 2015.
Maybe I'm looking at an abbreviated list.
Yeah. So they didn't make it past, they made the playoffs twice after that, but never made it past until 2015, which is where they had a very, very good year. You had Thomas Rongen, who was there as a coach for Chivas in their first year. He lasted a year. Chivas doesn't exist anymore. You got Timo Likoski for the Columbus Crew. Was there for their first year. Kind of, obviously, we know that wasn't the best. Yeah, he lasted just a couple of months. Where so they made the playoffs, but everybody made the playoffs back then, right? So not something to look at there, but they didn't finish top 5 until 2001, so 5 years later. Then you had Bobby Houghton for Colorado Rapids in 1996, their first season. In which they didn't finish above 5th until 2002, 6 years later, where they finished 4th. Then you had Alan Cook for FC Cincinnati, who transitioned from USL to MLS and struggled, right? But we've seen how long it's taken FCC to be good. Let's also go back to Inter Miami as well. Inter Miami was one that we brought up where what's his face? Oh gosh, I can see his face.
Only you can see his name.
Diego Alonso. I wanted to say Diego Carlos, but that wasn't going to work. He lasted 1 year, and they still are garbage, right? And I mean, they've only been in the league for now 3 years, but 19th and 20th over the last 2 seasons, and they're just starting to get better. You are setting yourself up for failure by getting rid of somebody who's trying to implement an identity, because now you have to blow it all up, basically scrap the season, say, okay, we're basically folding, and having to build around a toxic player. If this is a player-driven thing, absolutely toxic, where people aren't going to want to play with him. You're looking at another 2-3 years before you're good. This is a terrible, terrible look for the Charlotte FC franchise, brand, front office. It just isn't a good look.
Yes, fully agree with you.
The other thing I wanted to talk about here is they've now gotten rid of him. What do you think their chances are that they can get into the playoffs now? Does this hurt them? Do they have enough time to turn it around?
I think this definitely hurts them. I don't think they make the playoffs. I think it was still going to be tough to make the playoffs even without the coaching change. However, I think this makes it much harder. I think, like you said, maybe at this point now you're looking at just trying again next season with a new coach, if that's the case, if that's the direction that Charlotte wants to go in. But now you kind of got to bring it, you got to go with a guy who's going to potentially implement the whole new system. And now you have to learn this whole new system that, again, you don't even know is going to work at the end of the day. So I think playoff wise, they just took a big hit on their chances of making it.
I think for me, it's less about this year and more about the long 5-year plan, right? You don't come in and be like, it's not like FIFA where you're like, okay, year by year, this is how I want to win this title, right? This is as much of a business as it is a game, right? So you have to figure out what your 5-year plan is. And your 5-year plan just got blown out the window because you decided to listen to one player who didn't like him when the majority of your locker room did, right? So now you've hurt the majority for the minority in a locker room that, especially in an expansion year, especially when it's your first year and you're trying to get things going in the right direction. This is such a terrible decision on all fronts. There's nothing that anybody can say that can make me think that this was a good idea. And I challenge you to play devil's advocate because I don't think it exists.
No, I'm not going to go. I agree with you. So I have no argument the other way. I can't see any situation in which someone thinks this is a good idea.
It's awful. It's awful, awful, awful. For my friends who are Charlotte FC fans that are listening, I am sorry that you have to go through this. This is something I did not expect your team to have to go through. But be strong and get through it and continue to support, right? You continue to support and hopefully they repay you and get you into the playoffs in your first year, which would be massive. But they had an identity. They had, they were getting much better at home, had to pick up the away form, but that's what happens when you're an expansion team. That's just life. No, it's just a terrible, terrible decision.